Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We've been walking together through the preparations of this year's garden from seed starting to up potting, and now everything is officially planted out into the garden space. So let's take a little tour. During the winter months, I planned out the minute details of this space. I took measurements, used the dot grid of my bullet journal, and created an in-depth plan for our market-style inspired garden with an emphasis on companion planting. This entire garden area used to house a 25-foot diameter above-ground pool with an attached deck that we removed immediately upon moving in. Instead of cultivating more yard space for the kids, we chose to convert this entire half of our yard into our garden. Here are the first illustrations of our garden plan that were less detailed. You'll see in the margins that I even calculated how many of each plant I wanted to grow. And here is our final completely thought out plan. This is the most detailed I've ever been on our garden plan. I mean, this really is our second year seriously gardening, but we wanted to expand our garden significantly from last year's, and I thought that if I did all the thinking and planning ahead of time, then it would be pretty mindless work to just plant it all out. Over the recent years, self-sufficiency and sourcing quality food has risen on our priority list, and while we live in a town with ordinances prohibiting the ownership of farm animals within the city limits, we can try and produce a majority of our produce and canned goods straight from our garden, and this is what that looks like. We have 6 garden beds that are 2 feet wide and 15 to 16 feet long, with walkways about 2 feet wide as well. This is where you can see the influence of the market-style garden. In early spring, we amended the soil in these rows with aged cow manure from the family that provides us with raw milk when they're in a season of milk abundance. The layout of each garden bed is very similar. Keep in mind that we're testing out some high-intensity spacing methods. Working within a 2 feet width, we have black beans planted down the left edge of a majority of our beds, and down the right edge of our garden beds is a line of onions. Now, variation comes in a line down the center of these narrow beds. In these market-style beds, we primarily have an assortment of peppers and tomatoes. In this first row, we have some shishito peppers, 2 different bell peppers we were gifted, and then some early jalapenos. You'll see some of my pepper plants have fruit on them already, and I don't know what to do. I think I should probably pluck it so that it can grow a little more established where it is first. I don't know. Let me know if you have any advice. It is so difficult for me to prune and thin my plants. In this second bed, we have an entire row of Jimmy Nardello snacking peppers. You can see to the left of the peppers are black beans, and to the right of the peppers are onions. At 3-foot intervals between the black bean plants, we also have some herbs and flowers. In this row, we have some nasturtium and lemon basil. You'll see a lot of green within the garden and pathways, many of which are weeds. We've been receiving a lot of rain the past couple of days, so those baby weeds keep popping up in our garden beds. But I have a stirrup that my parents gifted me for my birthday, and it's amazing. I'll have to show it sometime, but it's an absolute lifesaver for me while pregnant. As for the pathways, I'm flirting with the concept of living walkways as a sort of mulch system. I'm not sure yet. I'd love to hear how you guys mulch your pathways. In the third row, we have 4 Sun Gold cherry tomatoes, 2 Cherokee carbon hybrids, and 2 tomatillos. There's a marigold thrown in this bed too, along with a calendula. Now, all the calendula you'll see in this garden self-seeded from last year. we probably had 30 plants, no joke, popping up all over the place. I transplanted some into beds, I gifted half a dozen, and what I didn't leave in walkways had to go since they were in the way of the other plants. And our calendula is starting to bud. Our next bed is entirely Roma tomatoes with a marigold or calendula here and there. The herb interplanted along the bean edge is Italian Genovese basil. I do need to go through the tomatoes and prune off any leaves touching the ground. You can see a few spots on these lower leaves that are coming in contact with the soil, especially after a good rain or watering. Here's an update on our cool weather crops garden bed. We planted this out together over a month ago now. I really like how this fun zigzag design came to life as these plants grew. We have a red and green leaf lettuce variety, bok choy, cabbage, kale, and a mini romaine lettuce variety that is just about ready to harvest. 2 of our bok choy plants went to seed, but we still got a harvest out of them by gathering their outer leaves, leaf lettuce style. I'm hoping to save some seeds from them soon. We have a small patch of radish and beet seeds here. And then take a look at this cabbage. This is my first time successfully growing a cabbage. It's looking a little eaten up, but I'm excited to cut into it soon and see what's going on inside. Here are more mature golden beets. Here is a look at our first sowing of carrots. And our final garden bed has our spicy pequeño peppers, 3 gifted red bell peppers, and 2 okra plants that were direct sown. Cilantro is the herb interplanted with the beans. In this corner of our yard, we have our asparagus patch that I started from seed last year. It was so exciting to see it survive winter. And next to the asparagus, we have our garlic bed. I planted out cloves in the fall, and it's looking so good and healthy. It just sent up its scapes, which I'll cut off the majority of the plants so that they send more energy to bulb development. But I'm interested in seeing what their flowers look like and maybe harvesting some garlic seed if that's how it works. We have 2 apple trees that we planted last year, and this one flowered already this spring. And I naively thought our other tree didn't flower, so I didn't need to pluck the blooms off of this one. But bees travel pretty far, apparently, and they actually pollinated this tree. So I chose to pluck all the little apples developing on these tiny branches, which was kind of heartbreaking, but the branches just couldn't support all of that fruit. At the base of our apple trees, we have an assortment of herbs and flowers: holy basil, bee balm, anise hyssop, and lupin. Then behind these trees along our fence line, we direct sowed about 16 feet of tall sunflowers, and they have begun to sprout. I am really excited to see how this sunflower wall works, especially since the soil right here is right up against our driveway, so it's full of gravel. Hopefully it's not like the seed sown on rocky soil that is scorched by the sun. Right between our sidewalk and the first row in the market style garden, we have a few container planters, 3 of which have blueberries, 2 of which are producing fruit this year. And I thought they might not do this because I actually transplanted them from the ground into these pots this year. But they are loving the change. Our next planter has a container eggplant, a single chive, and oregano. And this oregano is thriving. Our final planter has that same container eggplant variety and thyme, which strangely looks picked over. I'm not sure if an animal got to it or just one of my children. Now we are in the area in front of our market style garden. My kiddos have their garden beds here full of seeds they picked out all on their own that are beginning to sprout. Here you'll see a few tiny seedlings. They're really excited, and I'm really excited about these sweet little beds. Right next to their beds, we have some pole beans, nasturtium, and pickling cucumbers that haven't completely sprouted yet, but some are peeking through. Flowing from that section, we have some pitiful peas that'll just come out soon. I never got around to trellising them and I planted them late, but hopefully I'll be a little more prepared in the fall and we can try them again then. We have a small section of soil between our sidewalk and house. Since we have a kind of natural barrier with the sidewalk, we planted some apple mint that was a gift to us. We also planted 2 rhubarb plants and 2 comfrey plants there. I'm not sure if this will be our rhubarb's forever home, but I'm not worried about moving it in the future. I just wanted to make sure it got in the ground to grow a little bit this year. Here is a glimpse at our berry patch. We had 4 raspberry plants along this fence line, followed by some June-bearing strawberry plants that we planted this year, along with a self-pollinating peach tree. There's an absolute tomato volunteer forest that we're fighting over here because at the end of last season, we piled our plants in this corner to dry out, and apparently some fruits were still hanging on and left us these little gifts. Our next garden sections are a little haphazard. We have some landscaping around the sides of our house that we're trying to convert into an herbal and medicinal flower garden. Here we have some lemon balm and dill, both of which came back from last year. Then we have some lavender and chamomile at the corner of our wrap-around landscaping. I hope this makes a delicious smelling hedge that will self-seed next season. Since our house is on the corner of the street, there is this section of soil between sidewalks that has the wooden pole for electrical and such. Again, we are using the sidewalk here as a natural barrier. So last year, we planted our sweet mint in this place, and it is flourishing this season. And finally, here is a beautiful rose that I'd love to train up an arbor over the fence entrance to our backyard. Thank you so much for watching. How is your garden doing? I will see you next time.